Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Tea Time with Mother Crone. We've got another full pack show for you. We're going to go over some really cool stuff because we're looking at another holiday coming up. Can you believe it? Already another holiday. So before we get started with the holiday, we're going to tell you what's in our cups. Mine got left at the last gathering, so.
That's okay. So today we are drinking Echinacea tea, which is good because after our little trip, here in Florida we have really bad pollen. So I've been having the phlegmy, yucky cough again with my allergies. So this is perfect. And it's also known as purple coneflower or Samson root, and also coneflower. I'm sorry, coneflower and purple coneflower, and then Samson root. And then it's really good for boosting your immune system. So it helps prevent those coughs and flus if you do it regularly. It helps soothe the throat if you already do kind of have, that going on. It also helps with aches and pains that are associated with colds and flus. So it's really good in that sense. It also has a lot of antibacterial properties. So it's actually really good for yeast infections and urinary tract infections, which I thought was really interesting. Because I'll usually drink it, allergies, cold, but I don't ever think of it for, things like that.
Echinacea is one of those really, really good immune boosting. If you have any kind of autoimmune disorder or diabetic or anything like that that takes you a little bit longer to get over being sick, that's when Echinacea really comes in handy. And there's nothing wrong with boosting your immune system during fall and springtime, because that's usually when people tend to get sick, or around the holidays because we get stressed.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's really good. And actually, I don't know about you, Pam, but Echinacea is actually one of the things I don't need honey with for a tea. And it's also good if you put lemon in it. And of course, you get that benefit of lemon, which is the vitamin C, which is also going to help the immune system. But I don't notice myself really needing honey on this one.
No, this one is one of the ones, if you notice too, there's a lot of Echinacea teas already out there. I like caution because you never know how much Echinacea is really in the tea, because you don't get to see the mix. That's kind of why it's sort of better to buy your own herbs and make your own mixture, because then you know how much you're putting in. But this is one of those things that, believe it or not, as a cold iced tea is not bad.
Yes, and if you do buy the pre-blends and the tea bags in your local grocery store, that's perfectly fine. I've done that plenty of times. But if you can, try get organic, if anything. And they do have some good blends. And also, it's also good for upper respiratory infections. And one of the things that I found out is it's native to North America, including the United States. And then so the Native American tribes and the Great Plains Indians actually use Echinacea for hundreds of years for ear infections. And I thought that was really interesting because I personally had not heard that. For ear infections, I've heard colds and flus, but it makes sense because a lot of times the ear infections kind of go hand in hand with the colds.
And also especially with the nasal thing going on.
Exactly. And those are some really good medical benefits. There were actually quite a few. But just to summarize, I'm sorry, I keep looking at my tea. I'm stirring my tea. And of course, like anything we say, these are herbs. Before you add things, any plant medicine, consult your primary healthcare professional, because you may be allergic to certain things. People are allergic to plants and different things. And, also certain things, if you're pregnant, may, not be such a great idea. So just remember those type of things.
There can be a lot of interaction with drugs that you're taking. Although we say it's natural and homeopathic, doesn't mean it's 100%. Arsenic is natural and homeopathic. So when we're telling you this, it's like if you're taking Coumadin as a blood thinner and you go around eating all this broccoli, you've actually crossed out the benefits of the Coumadin, because the broccoli is very high in vitamin K, and vitamin K is a clotting factor.
Exactly.
So you're trying to thin your blood and then you're thickening it back up again by eating your broccoli. So always double check, even regular foods. There are certain foods you should not eat when you're taking certain medications.
Yes.
Please pay attention to the labels. If you ever have a question, always ask your doctor or pharmacist.
Yes.
They can assist you in that. But if you notice, echinacea now is really big, especially with the coldies and those kinds of things. They're really pushing the echinacea. And like I said, take it hot, brew it, add a little bit of honey to it, and then make it cold. And it makes a really nice cold iced tea.
Yes.
So that you can have that. You can put a piece of lemon in there. You can put a piece of mint in there, and you've got a really nice tea. And the whole time it's just boosting your immune system. So it's like you're doing wonderful things for your body.
Oh, that's a good idea. Do that on a hot summer Florida day.
We have
a different way.
Yeah, we have hot summer Florida days, almost 300 days a year. So,
except, this has been a weird winter though. I know we brought that up before, but especially in Jacksonville, we've had some cold days.
Right. It's not been so bad on the Gulf side, but again, whenever the temperature changes, it doesn't have to be freezing for you to get sick. People don't understand. Your body gets used to that one groove, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, you threw it a horseshoe, and now it's going to go, okay, now I got to figure out what I'm doing.
Yeah, tomorrow's supposed to be a high of 84, and then Friday is supposed to be in the 30s again. So it's like, it's insane.
You guys really are doing
we really are. I mean, it's still going to get a high of 60, but that's like a huge, in a 24, that's a big span. 84 and 60, that's a lot. And 30s in the morning.
And that's, again, you're stressing your body because your body doesn't know how to deal with this. And anytime you're stressed, just the simple act of making that cup of tea can sometimes just relieve your stress. They did a study on it, and they found that going through the motions of the water, getting the tea ready, getting the cup ready, that little ritual that you do actually starts to de-stress you, because you know you're going to have that nice cup of tea. So even just that can help with a stress level issue.
And that's a good point that you bring up too. Just to go on top of that, if it's all about mindfulness. If you're distracted and you're allowing yourself to be busy with these other things while you're making tea, then yeah, it might not be as relaxing for you. But make it a point to quiet your mind, focus on the tea making process, like you said, the boiling the water, the pouring, the herbs, all of that, and just be mindful and just be in that present moment. And it makes a world of difference just to have that little mind break in the day. It makes a big difference.
And the English do it the best with their afternoon tea times.
Yes.
They call it a cuppa, and it's really nice. So, it doesn't matter whether you take your tea hot or cold. It's just a matter of getting it into your system.
Exactly. And there were also some pretty interesting magical properties of echinacea as well. It's really good for strengthening spells. So you can add them to charm bags. You can add them also to herb mixes and medicine bags. And one of the examples that it gave was, in the research that I did, was that it's good for strength for yourself during trying times. So if you're doing any sort of ritual or meditation or spell for something like that to get you through difficult times, it's supposed to be a strengthening herb to use. I thought that was very interesting. And if you think about it, it strengthens your body,
your immune system. Yeah.
Mind-body connection. Yeah. So I thought that was really interesting. It's also used in money drawing magic, which I thought was really interesting because, who doesn't love that or want or need it? Really? But you can either grow the echinacea or you can bring it to your home if it's already potted and you do it. And it's supposed to attract prosperity and also ward off poverty. So it's supposed to prevent negativity and protect the family from poverty, which I thought that was really interesting. Because I never heard that. I knew a lot more. I knew a lot more about the medicinal benefits, but I was not as familiar with the magical aspect of it, and I was pretty surprised. It's also used as an offering to the spirits, which I found was interesting. Native Americans actually used the root because they thought it would connect them to the spirit world. So I found that to be really interesting. And they would also use it to treat burns and snake bites. I had not heard of that either. So I was like, oh.
Well, the antibacterial properties probably helped with infection.
Exactly, the antibacterial. And ancient Chinese healers did in fact use it as an antibiotic. So that makes a lot of sense, ties into everything that we're saying. And everybody, I mean, they know that thousands of Chinese medicine, herbs is their thing. And so it also says the dried flowers can be burned as incense. Now, I shared this with Pam. I'll share it with you guys. When I read this, I'm like, oh, this will be so nice. I'll have my little cauldron with my little charcoal here, and I'll burn some of my echinacea flower that I got from our shopping trip. And boy, I'm glad I did that beforehand because it smelled awful. It smelled really awful. I mean, it's strong. You can definitely use it for strengthening, but oh man, it smelled so strong. I was afraid the smoke alarm was going to go off. It smelled like burning and fire. I had to add rose petals. I cannot even make this up. And Pam and I had a good laugh about it, but that's my own personal experience. So I will just be putting it in my tea. I will add it to my herbs and charm bags, but this girl is not using it for incense, I don't think, anymore.
She goes, oh, it was so bad. I've never burned it. It never occurred to me.
I totally just experimented right before we started the show. So I was like, let me try.
So you're going to stick with the dragon's blood, right?
Oh, yeah. And that's Haley's favorite, too. She loves dragon's blood. That's her favorite. But yeah, I just had to share that funny story because, oh, wow.
We tell everybody, we tell it like it is on the show. So.
We do. Yes, we do. And we have fun. That's what makes it fun.
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, that was kind of a surprise because I had never heard it used as an incense.
I hadn't either.
I'm more like, dragon's blood or, of course, patchouli, sandalwood,
right.
those
frankincense, that.
Yeah, you think of all that. I never thought of echinacea as something to burn personally, but I'm glad that you tried it.
I saved you an experience. You're welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I think that would have been a little bit more than I could handle tonight.
Oh yeah. I could, like I said, I could see why it's used for strengthening spells because it is strong. I was like,
it was strong.
I was like, oh no, we're in for it. I was waiting for my husband to come running in the room. What's burning? I was like,
it was burning down the house.
It was like burning.
Oh, that would be awful. Yeah, that's interesting though. I am like you. I did not know that many of the magical properties because I had always used it as an herb for healing. That was one of the big herbs that when I took my certification, that was one of the big herbs because it's like drink it every day. It cannot hurt you. Build that immune system.
Yeah, it really can. And I was the same. I had a lot of information on the medicinal side. For a while I went to school for my bachelor's in alternative medicine. So I was a lot more familiar on the healing medicinal side, but the magical side, I was pretty surprised. I was pretty impressed, honestly. But as we do these shows, you and I talk about it, we find out so much about these herbs because we always try to talk about both the medicinal and the magical aspects of these herbs. And it's just so interesting the things that we learn and the new things that we can use these herbs for that we never knew about before.
Yeah, it's interesting too because I guess we give a hands-on. You go and burn them. We let you know what really works.
There you
But
go.
it's interesting because you may not be using it for medicinal. You may want it magical, but then again, you might want it medicinal to magical. So if we
Right.
cover both of them, it gives everybody a different idea. And when you purchase your herbs, it gives you an idea of how much you're purchasing, and how long you're going to keep it. Like, oh, they got a sale on it. Should I get it? And then if I don't use it for making teas or whatever, what am I going to do with it? And now you know you can make your mojo bags with it. You can use it, around your yard, strengthen those boundaries and the property lines, those kinds of things. So, it's an all around good herb to have around. I never knew some of the other stuff that went with it. That's pretty cool.
I know, I thought so.
And again, we are still I know up north is getting snowstorms after snowstorms. So this might be a good time for our brothers and sisters up north, maybe to look at packing in a little bit of that echinacea.
Yes.
Because you guys are getting slammed with Mother Nature's little disagreement with Father Time.
Yeah, and I just saw, I'm a dork and I watch the Weather Channel, like it's Channel 4. I have it on a lot. I like weather stuff, and I wanted to be a storm chaser when I was a kid, just putting it out there, meteorologist. So I love watching that stuff. And I am so sad for the people in Texas right now. It's so sad. I mean, the power outages, the snow, the flooding, and then their roofs are caving in and they're freezing, and it's just, and it hasn't happened, they said, since 1989. And it's just, which is when we got snow here in Jacksonville, funny enough, was 1989 as well. But oh my gosh, I was just seeing some of the video footage, and prayers to everyone being affected. It's pretty massive.
I know our sister Corey, Reverend Corey up in Tennessee was getting snow. I was like, oh my goodness,
I know, for quite a while. She's been posting videos for a couple days now, and but she took some beautiful pictures and of the snow, and she always has beautiful photography.
Yeah, she's got some great shots, but I was sitting there going, wait a minute, this is February and this is the South and it's Tennessee, and she's got what on her grass? So yeah, they got hit pretty hard too. I was surprised. So, and I know up further north, Maryland and West Virginia, they're under a blanket right now of snow. So some of the ideas that we're giving out, we're here basking today in 75 degrees. But just to let others know, you still get colds in Florida, and you still,
yes. Oh my gosh,
allergies are like miserable in Florida.
This time of year for me, like January, February, sometimes March, not so much, but always allergies, colds, and stuff.
So that is one way to kind of help you along there up north. We're doing our best for you. We're hoping Mother Nature kind of settles that disagreement with Father Time real soon and they get their act together. Yes. But in the meantime, we have another holiday coming up. We do, and it is around the corner. Now, it's interesting how this holiday coincides with the Christian holiday. And we're going to talk a little bit about all the holidays that are coming up, because again, like at Christmas, Yule time, there were 20 different practices having holidays. Here, we're going to look at some of the ones that are happening just in the month of March. Now, you have to remember the equinox is March 21st, 22nd, 23rd, depending upon where you are, if we have a leap year or whatever else is going on with Mother Nature, but it's in that area. I usually always try to tell everybody 21, 22. That's how you remember it.
Right.
But it is rather interesting that when you start looking back at the equinox and you start looking at some of the other practices that are around that time, most of the other faiths plan their holidays around the equinox and the lunar calendar. So it's still done interestingly. But some of the other, it's called during Holy Week. We also have Passover, which is a very Jewish tradition. And Passover is when the angel passed over the houses of firstborn male child that had blood or lamb's blood on the doors. So the angel actually passed over. And that's an interesting one because when you look at it, it just seems relatively harmless. But it has been tied into not just the Jewish faith, but into the Christian faith, because they still have their Seders and they still have their Passover practices on both of them. So we've got all that coming up. We've got Easter coming up. So it's kind of like a lot of things going on all at once in a religious area. Now, I am of the mindset that whatever you celebrate is absolutely awesome and fascinating. So I like to look into some of the practices of different people so that you can kind of learn something about the world. Our world is getting smaller and smaller every second. I can remember back in the day to make a long distance phone call, and I'm not just talking here in the United States, because that was long distance across town sometimes. But to make a European or transatlantic call, there was like I swear it was a 2-hour delay, but it wasn't. But it was like hello, and you had that. Then the other person would say,
God.
and then you would say something, and then you would have to wait for it to get there for them to say something. So you would have to cram and talk as quickly as you could so that your phone bill wasn't like the national debt.
Right.
I speak with, I can't tell you, I speak with up to 3 or 4 countries a day all over the world. And I'm on my phone, and it's like, oh, a cell phone, not even a landline. And I'm talking to all these people. So it's interesting. Monday is a Lithuanian holiday, actually, a Ukrainian holiday, excuse me. So I had to make sure that I get all of my stuff done in a timely fashion because their banks will be closed. And yes, they have to know our holidays. So my calendar at work has everybody's, all these different countries' holidays on them so that I know when I can talk to the people, because nothing worse than calling somebody like, oh my God, that's right, they're off today. Just like when they call us and we're off. Now, the Ukraine calendar has almost triple the holidays we have that they have off, national holidays. So I always tell my Ukrainian people that, it's like, okay, guys, you're off more than we're at work. So I don't even want to hear about it when you have a day off, but we have to know those days off because heaven forbid we have to call and talk to somebody.
Right.
So it's that kind of thing. So I just thought we'd go into a little bit of stuff that you may have never heard before. Everybody is familiar with Palm Sunday, Ash Wednesday, Holy Thursday, and Good Friday, and Holy Saturday. And then you go to Easter Sunday. So that's pretty packed. That's all the Christian religions have that right there. And it's laid out very firm. Now we have holidays, and I was fortunate with learning a lot of the Jewish holidays when I worked for the Jewish Times at one time. So Passover is an interesting one, and it's 8 days, kind of like the 8 days of Hanukkah. And all traces of leaven, alcohol, bread, grains, cereal, vinegar, cornstarch are removed from the home. And during Passover, no products made from regular flour or using leavening ingredients are eaten, except for the Passover wine. That is the one thing that is eaten. And a lot of the Jews also avoid corn, string beans, peas, lentil, chickpeas, and other dried beans, apparently because they could be ground into flour. So that's another stop there. And it is interesting that the day before the feast, the head of the house searches for any traces of leaven. And before the search, someone hides a few breadcrumbs on a napkin. It's kind of like a game for them to find. The crumbs are sought out in a hunt, somewhat like an Easter egg hunt kind of thing. And it's conducted by candlelight. And once they find them, they're ritually banished. They ritually banish them by putting them into a paper bag and using a palm branch or feathers and saying the following words: all leaven I have not seen or removed, or that I don't know about, is hereby null and void and ownerless as the dust of the earth. And the next morning they burn them. So that's an interesting tradition. So, and it's it's they also do a plate of symbolic food, and I found this very interesting to remember your holidays and to make them make sense to you. It's really interesting for the Seder meal. There's a special plate of food, and it represents the different aspects of the Exodus. And there's a lot of different liturgies and all that go with it, but it usually begins by lighting the candles, hand washing, eating herbs dipped in salt water, and breaking matzah, the unleavened bread. And each part of it is one part of the meal. It all represents something. The tears, the salt are the tears that you cry. Honey is the sweetness when you get to the land of milk and honey, those kinds of things. So it's very interesting. And now the Persians called the spring equinox Nowruz. And that's interesting because it means new day. So they kind of have their calendar set that way. So that is a new day for them, with the equinox beginning a new part of the year. So the evening meal on the day of Nowruz is a grand feast on the scale of Passover and Easter. And both the decoration of the table and the sort of food that they have all have symbolic references. 7 dishes on Nowruz table represent the 7 spirits that guard mankind. And that's birth, life, health, happiness, prosperity, beauty, and life.
Oh, that's sweet.
So, I thought that was really sweet. I mean, and it's kind of nice. And in the 12 days that follow Nowruz, they visit their friends and family and share meals and gifts. You know, it's just a gathering of the force. And a pot of soup is kept going throughout the 12 days to symbolize a constant abundance desired in the new year.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting.
So, yeah, it ends with a big picnic on the 13th outside. So that's kind of cool. I mean, that's really different. They also celebrate, since it's their new year, they have like other New Year celebrations, special foods that all have symbolic meanings. Some of what they have are, you have to remember in Persia, they have a lot of nuts and dates and fruits. So those are typically what they have. Hazelnut, fig, apricot, raisins, those types of foods. But it's kind of interesting that, you know, they have a whole idea of how this is supposed to work. Now, the Monday after Easter, it's always called Easter Monday. Here in the United States, it's really not a celebrated type day. It's just the Monday after Easter, or Easter Monday. Now, there are some businesses that still close on Easter Monday. And it's associated with water in many places, and it's a symbol of new life. And it is celebrated in different places, and most of it in certain areas, people take the day off in different countries to go to the water to celebrate the water. And they usually go, like, you know, wherever they have water. So it would be like our, I guess, summer trips to the ocean or to the river for canoeing and things like that. Now, in Romania, the Monday following the Easter, women throw red Easter eggs into running streams for the benefit a lost race of spirits, which live on the bank of the river, fed by the streams in the world. And that's how they celebrate. They throw those red eggs in there just to celebrate the spirits, which is a little different. Mm. In Italy, it's called La Pasquetta, and it's called Little Easter. And everyone goes on a picnic, and it's like an all afternoon thing, very much like the Persians go on their 13th day outside. So they take, you know, an ounce of pasta, of course, and hard-boiled eggs, you know, and local bitter herbs, and, you know, they just have a really good time with it. In England, especially in the Northwest, along the Welsh border, Easter Monday is also called Lifting or Hawking Monday. Now, I heard of that before. Young men roved around in groups carrying a stout chair decorated with greens, flowers, ribbons, in which they placed each woman of the house and lifted her up 3 times in the air, and then claimed a kiss and a small gift of money. On Tuesday, women went around with the chair and lifted the men. And the lifting ended promptly at noon on both days. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, so that's one of those holidays where we treat the guys just like the girls. So that was kind of fun. They have a couple different, like in Poland, women and men splash each other with water and then play the egg shackling game on Easter Monday. So it is something you notice there's water in all of this.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool that it was celebrated always with water. So there are a lot of different, holidays, but it's kind of neat to look at what other cultures do.
Oh
Even
yeah.
in our own culture. I mean, a lot of people don't understand the aspects of Easter and like I could never figure out how eggs and bunnies went together because that was like I know how bunnies came out. They did not come out in eggs.
Right.
Okay. I grew up on a farm, so I kind of know how that happens. But it
Right.
was always interesting to me that you have eggs and bunnies. And Melinda's going to go into that next show because she's going to go into a little bit of the symbolism because that's what makes your holiday your holiday. There's certain symbols you see and you immediately, this time of year, you see a lamb and a lion, or you just see the lamb.
Right.
Lamb is very significant with Easter, with the equinox. Spring lamb this time of year, you get from, believe it or not, up around Scotland, England, because this, remember in bulk, they were pregnant with the lambs. Well, now it's time to take them to slaughter and for you to have your lamb for Easter, or if you celebrate Ostara, you have it for them. So it's kind of an interesting one where you have a lot going on. There's a lot of different holidays all crammed up together. This year, Easter is April 4th.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
4th.
And
Okay,
then
so
that is Ostara March 20th, I believe, was the this year. Mm-hmm.
right. So now you've got all that going on. So we're going to go into a little bit about what our holiday is about because a lot of people don't understand. They call it our Easter, and it's kind of Easter, but it's more celebrating the sun coming back.
Right.
Because this is the time of year that's the equinox, just like they're opposite, the winter equinox, the spring equinox, they're polars. So it's kind of interesting, what exactly do we celebrate at this time? And a little bit, and I'm going to just a little bit because everybody wonders, where do we get this name from, Ostara? And at one time it was thought that there's a lot of going on with where did it come from? How did it get here? What, why do we celebrate it? What is involved with it? And it was interesting that Bede's account, Bede is B as in boy, E, D as in dog, E, who lived between 672 and 735 AD. And he wrote in, it was called On the Reckoning of Time. And he was talking about English months and how they celebrated. And the word Easter is actually derived from Esoter, which is Eostre, which is an Anglo-Saxon goddess of spring. And so it was like talking about this. They were writing about it. So this practice had been going on for quite some time. Now they had thought that the name came from, somebody writing about it, but they started looking at how old the word is. A linguist is someone who looks at the way words are spelled and pronounced and where they come from to see what their actual origins are. Right. And English is a mishmash of all languages. That's why it's very difficult sometimes to speak because we pull words in from all over the place just think about some of our words. Read, R-E-A-D could be read or read, depending on how you're reading it.
Right.
So, our words are a little strange, but they actually believe that this was derived from an Old Teutonic, which is German, root. And they're thinking that it was very close to dawn servant, dawn breaking, day breaking, when it was actually first started to being pronounced. And similar words include, you know, Ostare, Ostara, which is usually what you see, or you do see occasionally Eostre. And all of those, when they start looking at them through the Norse, the Old Norse, through Grimm, with Grimm's fairy tales, actually, they started looking and they're finding out that the word is actually much older than they thought it was, because it actually goes back to a Latin base. So it's very, very old word. And the word is basically saying a break, a spring break, a day break, dawn breaking. So it's all about starting over. And this time of year, the earth starts over, because things are starting to get, hopefully by March, things will start getting a little bit springier. And
well, and also think about it, that's why you have your spring cleaning. You're kind of starting anew. You're getting rid of the old, you're getting rid of the clutter. It's kind of in that same notion of, you know, starting anew, and it helps your spirits and your energy and your feng shui and all that good stuff. But yeah, that goes right along with what you're saying.
Yeah, so the word actually describes what it is. Now, for us, it is the interesting part of the sun, and when it shares time with the night. So it's coming in, and our days are going to start getting longer, and we're going to start, you know, being able to stay out longer, even without saving time. And a lot of what is going on is centered around the home and spring and new beginnings. And that's truly where the egg comes from. It's a new beginning. Eggs have been forever a symbol of new beginnings. So for modern pagans, and since we don't really have any, you know, 600-year-old pagans running around, for us, it is an interesting day, an interesting reference to the changing of the holidays. Changing of the weather, because it's starting to get warmer. They celebrate as one of the 8 yearly Sabbats, and it is like, you might not see it as much here in the South, but up north, that's when, you know, all your little snowdrops are starting to come out, and your crocuses are starting to bud, and your grass is actually starting to look a little green. So it is a ritual of spring and beginning, and also of fertility, because now we're starting back out again. And we all know our big fertility is in May, but this gets us started anyway, because you're coming outside after being basically shut in all winter, because you don't get out that much back then. Now we get out, of course, it's not a problem, but back in the day, it was very difficult to get out. So this, we know, that has been celebrated since the 600s, because it was written about. Grimm's fairy tales, actually 1785 to 1863. It was actually called Deutsche mythology, and what it was it's going back on the German and Dutch collection of myths and past histories, kind of like putting their, you know, ancient times together. Right. And Grimm suggested that various place names in the German Confederation were derived from Ostara's worship. And it was noted in the connection between how they spelled Eostre and Ostara, and various, you know, ways it's spelled. And they're saying that the name Ostara was in fact a plural, referring to, according to Grimm, to the multiple days of the feast. He proposed it was also the name of the goddess. But no earlier texts stating this are known. But he did suggest that the parallels between the names Esoter and Ostara months, and they list the months and holidays, Easter and Ostara, implied a common origin. So it again was a holiday that was kind of taken over a little bit. But what we celebrate is we're just celebrating the beginning of our spring, and getting out and being together with people, and just having that connection. Most of it is that it is more of a Celtic tradition, and there it is celebrated all over. They still celebrate it quite a lot because it is the beginning of getting out of the house after being in all winter. You can imagine what it must be like up in England now, because that's what comparable to Canada. So I'm sure it's not exactly warm up. I'm sure they're not on the beach right now.
Right.
But Melinda is going to go in and she's going to give us some really cool references next time about what some of the symbolism is. Just know for us that it is associated with various aspects of renewed life, spring, fertility, and modern worshipers kind of describe it as the goddess of dawn. You'll hear that referenced a lot for that. And it's a relationship between her name and the Anglo-Saxon word for dawn. And it's believed sometimes it's like the hare, the rabbit is also because of fertility. We all know, we've all heard they like rabbits, so that goes in. But it's also a lot of fun to celebrate with a lot of different foods and a lot of festivals. Now, I hear over and over again that, people want to distance themselves, but you're always going to have family that's going to be on the Christian side. So it's good to understand what Easter is to them, as well as to show what it means to us. So we have the Jewish tradition of Pesach or Passover, and that's the celebration of the flight from Egypt. So that was a good one. Then you've got the lambs were sacrificed in the Temple of Jerusalem. And from the sacrifice comes the symbol of Jesus as the Lamb of God. So that's a little putting it in there. And that the blood of the lamb was spread on the frame of the door so that the angel would pass over. And that's kind of neat. And Christians do have a whole celebration of their Easter where they celebrate Friday. Usually it starts on Thursday. The Catholics start on Thursday and run through to Sunday. So, and you have all these kind of wonderful things going on. So for us, it really doesn't matter what you celebrate or who you celebrate it with, but we do want you to celebrate something. Have a little fun. This is a cool time.
Yeah, and it's very important, especially, we all know what 2020 was like. So, now more than ever, take the time, celebrate, make the phone call, like you said. You brought up a good point with the Christian aspect, and we need to be able to, just as, we don't want to be bashed or have to defend our ways and our holidays and rituals, don't necessarily do don't do the same. Don't stoop down to that level.
And it doesn't matter what you celebrate, just make sure you celebrate it. Easter is very beautiful in different churches. I love the way they're decked out. They look gorgeous. The altars are just flowing with flowers.
Oh, yeah.
It's a very beautiful time for a church. There is nothing wrong with taking in an Easter sunrise vigil or going for midnight mass at Easter to see how beautiful things are in the churches. Just remember, a lot of those are pagan in origin, so it's kind of nice to be able to see it. But this is a time too with your children.
Yeah, it's just called something different, and it's tweaked a little bit, but and also, if you have family members, specifically ancestors, that Easter was a big deal to them in the sense of the Christian holiday, that might be a way to honor them, where if you only celebrate Ostara, maybe on Easter Sunday, do something a little special, light a candle for that ancestor, or family member or friend that, that holiday meant a lot to people. For some it's, Christmas and Easter, you hear the whole CEO thing, church, Christmas and Easter only. It's when some people go to church, the one that aren't the every week goers, but some people, like I said, it's just about tolerance and, coexisting, and
it's kind of nice too.
Really.
Golden rule. And for those who are kind of not sure where they sit, March 25th was the first day of the year from the 12th century to 1752. This holiday celebrates the Annunciation when the Archangel Gabriel announced to the Virgin Mary that she was pregnant, and thus the true beginning of Christianity. And it seems appropriate to acknowledge the sacred dimension of giving birth at the time of year when K-O-R-E, our goddess, is emerging from the underground and animals are bearing young and the plants are producing flowers. So it's all in this whole, if you look at everything, it's all in the same thing. We're all talking about the same
And if
thing.
I'm not mistaken, the goddess you're referring to is in some myths Persephone. And that's actually one of the goddesses I'll be talking about next week, so stay tuned. I'm going to talk about more in detail the gods and goddesses, as well as the symbolism surrounding Ostara, because it's really interesting. The most popular, you'll probably hear about is Ostare, which is a Germanic Norse goddess. But we'll talk about, those next week. It'll be fun. And then we'll have some crafts and things like that. And there's also a little story that I wanted to read next week as well. It's a modern story regarding Ostare, the goddess, and sort of how she became, but it's written by an author. So it's a folk myth. I think Ukrainian folk myth, actually. So yes,
Awesome.
Ukrainian folk tale that explains the origin of, and I know I'm going to say this wrong, Pysanky, Pysanky, which means beautifully decorated eggs. So it incorporates that with the goddess Ostara. I thought that was really cool. So I'm going to be sharing that next week as well.
And it's interesting that the goddess Cybele is actually mentioned this time of year. Attis was the lover and the grandson of Cybele. The Attic, Attic, which is an area in the Ukraine, and the goddess who was known as the mother of the mountains and depicted flanked by lions. When Attis betrayed her, she hunted him down and drove him insane. He tore off his genitals because they had caused him to betray her. So originally, the goddess Cybele's worship was imported to Rome, where she was called Magna Mater, which is Great Mother. Emperor Claudius popularized the tradition of bringing a young pine tree representing Attis into the city like a corpse, swathed in linen and woolen ashes and decked with violets. And around the spring equinox, member of the Tree Bearers Guild carried it through the city gate and into Cybele's sanctuary, which stood on the Vatican Hill near where St. Peter's stands now. The following day, the Day of Blood, priests of Attis danced and gashed themselves with knives, joining Cybele in her sorrow over her dead lover. And worshipers spent the entire day mourning and wailing and keening and doing all that, wonderful thing. And that night was spent holding a vigil over a mock tomb, supposedly her lover. And it says sometimes it was called Black Friday. Now that usually ended up enhancing the parallels with the myth of Christ, whose death is mourned on Good Friday. So now you see how we have the overlap, which the Albanians called Black Friday. So this means the date of the festival of Attis would have fluctuated from year to year, just like Easter.
Oh wow, interesting.
So, yeah, that was kind of different, that you're hearing a lot of different cool stuff. Now, of course, Easter has a lot that's going on. That is in the first part of April. So it's like, oh my goodness. Ours kind of is stable. It's always March 20 to 23rd, somewhere in that neighborhood. You're going to find Ostara. It makes it a little bit easier for us to find. And however you celebrate, just remember to celebrate it. Doesn't matter what you're celebrating. Let's have some fun with it. Melinda's going to put together a few crafts and a few cool ideas that we can do later on, and
Yeah.
you're going to get to see it. But
And stuff, some easy stuff you can do with the kids too. So it'll be cool. It'll be family, something family, and I'll have some for everyone. Fun to do.
and as Melinda had brought up earlier, about the bashing and all, we just need to remain a little bit ethical. Think about why people are celebrating. They're celebrating a feast,
Mhm.
and the feast we have a lot in common with the feast. And the feast is celebrated because that's what the people celebrate. And it's not good, it's not bad, but you also have to remember that when anybody celebrates, if it's not exactly what we celebrate, it's not bad. Ethics involved with that are just make sure that you're very aware of your family and who celebrates what. There's no need to make it worse than what it is with a little conflict. Enjoy the celebration, get out there, have some fun with it. There is nothing wrong with some of our wonderful, wonderful holidays being mishmashed together. Start your own family traditions. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do.
We do the hiding of the Easter eggs, Ostara eggs, we call them, of course. But and that's kind of part of my craft. I'll be talking about some natural ways of dyeing Easter eggs, and there will be some other things, Ostara eggs, like I said, interchangeable. So, and most of the times, even if you're pagan, you still say Easter eggs. I mean, depending on the person. But
It's still a Christmas tree.
Right, exactly. But what we actually did, because I do work full time, I have a day job. And so, a lot of times Ostara falls during the week. It's not always on a Sunday like Easter is. It's whenever the spring equinox is. So within those 3 days, whatever, and oftentimes it'll be during the week. So there's not a day off to be able to plan and do, everything, because mom and dad still have to work. It's a regular weekday. And can't always get the Sabbaths off, especially if it falls on the spring break for schools. Forget about it. It's not available because everyone tries to get off that time. So, but what we actually started doing a couple years ago, and the kids love, 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 love it, is we still decorate with stickers and we dye and we do all that fun stuff, boil the eggs. But what we do is, because by the time mom and dad get off and we have dinner, it's dark. But we still want to hide the Easter eggs. So we still hide them, but we get the kids glow sticks and like these big like glow stick swords or glow stick flashlights, and we go outside in the dark and at night, and we hide them in the yard or the woods, wherever we are. And they have a blast playing glow in the dark, hide and seek with their Ostara eggs. So we've done that a couple of years, and the kids look forward to it every year. They're like, get my glow sticks. Then they're all like glow sticked up. You can't see anything else on them because it's so dark outside, but you see their glow sticks hopping everywhere with their little Ostara baskets. So that's something that we kind of mesh together. That's really fun. The kids love it. And we'll still get like little dollar store fun stuff, like the little bunny glasses. Fiona who's 4. She loves stuff like that. And the little pencils with the egg, the little cutesy stuff like that. And candy, of course, is an excuse to eat chocolate,
Well, I saw an interesting one for adults. The mother used to hide bottles of small brew beer all over for the older kids to find. I was like, I want that, mother.
That is funny. Or I just had a thought that would be funny. You could, like, in another adult thing, you could have like, if you're having like a party, which of course, who knows when that will be. But if you have like a party and you can have like wine bottles and you can put like a big cotton ball on the end and hide them and just have the bottom sticking out with cotton ball, so it looks like bunny rabbits hiding, and you have to like go find them, scavenger hunt them. That would be fun.
Girl, I want a pinata filled with miniatures.
There you go. There you go.
There we go. That would be a great one. But no, there's a lot of fun things you can do. And for the adults, the hollowed out the little plastic eggs, you can always put little odds and ends in them. You can find adult things, but let me tell you, everybody's a kid when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Oh,
So
yeah.
even if you go to the dollar store and get little kitty stuff and put in those little eggs and put them out, the adults will have just as much fun.
And
Trust me.
I read something also somewhere. I don't remember where I read it. It was a long time ago that I read it, but studies showed that adults, if they, one of the ways that they can feel carefree and happy and have those nostalgic kid-like moments and getting in touch. Oh, look at that TV. My cat's trying to get out of the door. But you can, oh my goodness, I lost my train of thought. What was I saying?
About adults having fun and childlike.
Oh, blowing bubbles. If adults blow bubbles, that is somewhere a study showed that adults who blow bubbles, it gives them that sort of feeling again of being a child, and it increases like the dopamine and the happiness levels and all sorts of stuff, and it kind of gives you that nostalgic feel of innocence. And I thought that was really interesting because my kids love blowing bubbles and I have fun blowing bubbles with them. So, I mean, I could see how that's true, but it's like if you're feeling down in the dumps one day, just grab a bubble wand and blow bubbles and act like a kid again.
They're actually anything from coloring to blowing bubbles to, playing childhood games again. They're saying that we need to play.
Yes, they are.
We've lost that.
Look at how crazy the adult coloring book thing got. I mean, it kind of, everybody started doing that and still do it. And I mean, it's great. I have some, but I mean, it took marketing and to be like, hey, this is fun. This is amazing. And a lot of people even use it as meditating, when you're sitting and you're coloring.
Yes.
And people don't think of that,
It's funny how they're telling us now what we've known for how many years are we supposed to do a book of shadows journaling?
Right.
Now they're wanting you to journal.
Mm-hmm.
Psychiatrists are saying that is a great way to put down your thoughts, one, to go over the day to see, just, look how the day was. And it's also interesting to go back and read because 5 years later, you're looking like, I was so mad about that. I can't believe I gave that a second thought. So it kind of shows your growth. It also shows maybe where you need to work on something, a little shadow work there.
Exactly. I have kept, I'm not super great about keeping a journal. I do honestly want to get back into it and get better on a more regular basis. But when I was doing journaling on and off, and then I would find them and, I found mine when I was unpacking when we moved a few months ago, but it's really interesting when you go back and you read the things you wrote. And because I personally, typically you would date it. So you're like, oh, wow, I was really going through this 3 years ago, or, however long it is. And just like you said, how much you've grown, what you need to work on, or, and just what you experience in your life that you write down. And it's kind of the same thing with dream journaling. If you think about it, you write down your dreams. I go back and read some of my dreams, and of course I have no recollection of them. I'm lucky if I can get to my journal fast enough, because I'm so tired. I'm like, I just want to go back to sleep. I don't want to write and open my eyes. But when I do write the dreams down, I mean, I have some of the most bizarre dreams, I swear. But when you go back and look at it, it's the symbolism that's in the dreams. And when you go back, it almost never makes sense right then when you're writing it down and you're trying to figure it all out right when it happens. But if you go back and you look at your dream journals, you're like, oh, that's what that was about. Like, that makes sense now, and it's really neat when you have that moment of, that's what that crazy stuff was in that dream.
Well, it also helps too when you're writing things down. I've actually gone back to my journal to look at dates for something. Like I know I wrote about this in my journal. Where is it? And you
Right.
go back and you find the date, like, I don't know, the date you bought your car or the date maybe you bought the big screen TV home and we're so excited about it. You can go back and check on that kind of stuff.
Right.
Journaling does a lot. And it's funny that they told us as children, you had diaries and things of that nature. Well, when you grow up, you don't need them. And I think when you grow up, you need it even more.
Oh,
We need the
yeah.
coloring books. I mean, I never stopped coloring. I always enjoyed coloring books. That was my excuse. People used to say that was my excuse for having children, was so I could sit and color with them. Close.
It's fun.
But I've always enjoyed it. And then they started making the adult coloring books. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I'd have thought about it. I could have made a million.
Excuse me.
Because I absolutely love the color.
Oh, it's
And
fun. And they have like ridiculous ones out now because of course, with the adult coloring books, they have, of course, me, cuss words. They have like
yes,
ones that have cuss words with pretty flowers and you can, it's pretty, but it's still like a big cuss word, and they have, just different things that, of course, like the mandalas and things like that. And what's interesting talking about going back to childhood and kind of reconnecting in that way. I used to love the connect the dots. You remember the connect the dots? I found I love those as a kid and I haven't done them in for ages. And I mean, when the kids are real little, like Fiona's age, they'll have them in those big preschool workbooks that I'll do with the kids, like the educational things. But I haven't done them in so long. And then it was like a couple weeks ago, and there was like this book or something that one of the kids had, and I was looking through it, and I saw this big connect the dot thing. And then I saw something in the Dollar Tree where it was an adult connect the dot. So instead of like 25 dots, there was like 200 dots. It's a lot more detailed and intricate. But I bought it, and it's like so much fun. And it's meditative because you're focused on nothing else, but you're concentrating on, especially when there's so many numbers, you're concentrating on, okay, where's this number? What do I go to next? And making that line and that connection to create this visual, which eventually is going to be this pretty picture. But it was just so interesting, going back and doing something so childlike and the effect that it can have on you when you do it as an adult, like a different perception and perspective of the same activity. I just think it's really interesting how those things are kind of coming back full circle, and it's all like a thing now.
And I think it's we've always said it during springtime, usually and I was bad for springtime rituals. To me were more for the kids. We would do the Tigger or the
I still need to do that.
You still need to get that. I would have to do that with
the Tigger ritual, is that what you're talking about?
The Tigger ritual is awesome. You will laugh. You have to stay in character. I still
think I would be able to do Eeyore. I think I could do Eeyore.
But it's really fun because if the children see you having fun and enjoying yourself, then they know it's okay. I think sometimes as adults, we take life too seriously. I can say that now at my age because, I raised my kids. I went through, the trials and errors, homework projects, science projects, which were always.
I'm in it. I mean, my oldest is going to be 22 next week, and she come to me yesterday. You know what? I had such a proud mom witch moment. She's going to school for paralegal, and she had to do a case study on something from history. And she's not pagan. She's not, not even Christian. She's agnostic, atheist, whatever her path is. I don't think she's sure yet, which is fine. But it was interesting to me, and she didn't tell me about it until after she already submitted it to her professor, but she chose the Salem witch trials. And I thought that was interesting. And she came to me and was saying, like, what do you think about this? And, I told her it's important. And I expressed this to Haley too, because Haley is following my path. And Fiona pretty much is as well. I mean, they're both in Crystal Cavaliers. But it's important to know that history, like we talk about with the different Sabbats and the history and all. If you are following this path, it is my belief that it's important to know the history of these things, the Salem witch trials, the Malleus Maleficarum, and all these things that creates people's viewpoint of us, these days. And of course, Hollywood has a huge hand in it as well. But it's really interesting, and then Haley's 12 and Fiona's 4. And so I have all aspects of the projects and the, when you said the projects and the homework and the work and the house and that, it's never ending. So it is important to, and leaders and scientists and psychiatrists, therapists, it's an understanding. And like you said, we've known for a long time, but now light bulbs are going off like, hey, you need to journal. Hey, you need to, meditate, even if it's by coloring. If you can't lay down and chant or do a guided meditation, color, connect the dots, because you're not focusing on anything else, which ultimately is what meditating is. You're not focused on anything else but being present. So I just think it's really interesting,
They're trying to teach us to go back and enjoy life and to have fun.
Mhm.
And when you do a Tigger ritual or the chocolate ritual, it's hysterical. The kids get into it. You get into it. It's meant for fun. It's meant to be
Right.
frivolous.
Right.
That's the whole purpose. Goddess does have a sense of humor.
Mhm.
She's not ruling with a, iron fist. She's up there laughing. Take a real good look around. She's
Right.
got to have a good sense of humor.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. But it is a good idea. And this is the perfect time to do it. If you're an older crowd,
Mhm.
there is nothing more fun than hiding Easter eggs. Even if you put $1 in each egg and
Mhm.
hide 10 of them, have a couple friends over and just go out. You can have the rolling, carrying the egg and the spoon, the raw egg and the spoon to see if you
Oh
drop
yeah,
it.
that's
There's little tiny things like that maybe, oh, it's too childish. It's not. If your
yeah.
kids see you having a good time, they're going to understand that it's okay to have a good time.
Well, and it's an important piece of self-care as adults, because we do get caught up, and I'm very guilty of it. I do get caught up in the 9 to 5, then all the stuff that happens right after that. My husband is amazing. I am so blessed to have such an awesome husband. He, with all the projects that I have, he's in there taking care of dinner. We have a process at getting the kids wrangled in the morning. We have the system, but it's like, it's so important to take that step back when you are so busy, and just take a breath, because your kids are seeing that and you don't want to get burnt out. You don't want your kids to see that. It's very important to understand that it's all intertwined, and it's all ultimately part of self-care, ultimately journaling.
And all of that is something that we've actually haven't been doing a lot of. And we need to start taking our day, and the Corellian Times is coming out. And I put in there an interesting article about how to make a calendar of your day, just to make sure. I had 3 children, all different ages.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they were far apart in ages, so we had everything going on at one time. And it was crazy. And there were times when I forgot to smile because I was just so focused on, okay, when I get home, this one's got to do this one's got to do that. Thank God she was often married. So I could get these, so it was so much. And I would forget to have these fun times. And then started doing the rituals, and got a hold of the Tigger ritual, the chocolate ritual, and I did them and had so much fun. It's like, why didn't we do this before?
And that's
Why
one
were
of the
we
things,
focused?
exactly. And that's one of the things that I actually wrote about, I believe in the February issue of the Corellian Times. What for the Crystal Cavaliers, the Scouts, the kids section that I write, I did bring up making, when you're doing ritual at home, not necessarily in a tradition capacity, especially with COVID. But even if you are able to gather, safely with masks and things, but just when you're doing, if you do rituals at home with your, nucleus family, you can come up with different ways, like we've talked about before, different ways to make rituals your own for your family, your personalities. But what I wrote about was, with kids, it's really important. They don't want stuffy rituals. Let them be hands-on. Let them make the crafts like we talked about before. Let them make the little LED crafts for the different colors of the elements in the quarters. Let them be hands-on. If you're making the bread for in bulk and stuff, help them bake the bread. When you're doing Ostara, let them be hands-on. And I think that's really important. And I think sometimes we get caught up in structure a lot, which is important. It's very important. But especially when it comes to kids and family, make it fun. Make it fun, because like we've said, and we've said it on a past show before, that's what they're going to remember, when they're older.
Yes.
And what they're going to want to pass down to their kids. Oh man, we used to do this fun ritual when I was a kid. I got to, and they'll keep it going. So I think we don't think about that enough. We think about, and tradition is great. I love tradition and structure, but, times are changing. Kids are not reading books as much anymore as they are on their phones reading books, or, or playing the apps or the YouTube, or don't even get me started. But, it's much different even than when I was a kid. I was into the Goosebumps and, all those type of books. But
Right. And if you start with your kids now, you'll remember the stuff, the crazy stuff you remember as a child. Your kids will come up. I was like, oh, I remember this, and you're going like, out of
Right.
that whole thing, you remembered this. And it was usually the silliest little thing, but to have fun and to laugh with your kids is, again, that is something that is very important, to show them that, yeah, mom and dad can have fun and we can laugh and we play the silly games, and there's nothing wrong with that. And we're getting back to that now. We're all trying to reach back into our childhood and enjoy the simpler life. As back, even when my children were younger, things were a lot simpler than what they are now.
Right.
So it's important to do that. Also, with a lot that's going on now, we have COVID and all this crazy. Just keep in mind that, you may have to alter a lot of your plans. And it is sad if you can't be with family that you normally would be Easter time, or, even past holidays.
Right.
Just remember that you might want to start new traditions. You might want to do something fun. Ask them
Or
what you
mesh them, start new ones, mesh the new and the old. Make that something, honor your ancestors with traditional ways, but also come up with new ways, fun ways, and make it a marriage of the two. And
and just remember, don't be sad because you can't be with people. Be happy because you can be with who you are with.
right.
And that's really important to remember, because it is stressful if you're used to being with your family, or you feel like you have an elderly parent that, they always do Easter at this house, and, you can't do it this year because of the COVID and all the other crap that's going on. So maybe just start your own traditions at your own house and be a little silly with it. Easter dinner can be, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, if that's so
Right.
be it.
Bunny rabbit pancakes. I mean, you could do. There's
So much.
Go on Pinterest. You can find all sorts of little cutesy little food crafts to do.
But keep that in mind, but also keep in mind ethically that there are many holidays again at this time of year, like there is at Christmas and Yule, and just everybody has their own belief. But if you start looking back in the books, you're going to find out how close they really are. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, is this Easter or Ostara? Does it really matter?
Yeah, and for anyone that does any sort of, religions class, I took a world religions class in college, and then comparative religions I'll be taking here soon, as part of clergy for the tradition, but it's like, if you really look into the different religions, there's way more similarities with a lot of things. I mean, of course, there's going to be differences, but it's really important, like I've said before, unity over division. We need to look at the common ground and not the differences. It's the differences that make everyone unique and so great, and we need to embrace those instead of looking at it as negative. And I think when we get to a better place and we're able to do that, it'll be better. But
It is. And just keep that in mind, because you can still celebrate with your family.
yeah.
We've done combined Easter, Ostara. It's great.
Don't get me started on Christmas. I mean, we do Yule here with our immediate food, with my husband and my kids. And then Christmas Eve is at my dad's, because we're very German, and that's when we do the whole pickle in the tree, that whole thing. And it's a blast. And then Christmas morning is with my mom and my husband's dad, my father-in-law. So it's a busy time of the year. But we celebrate it out. I mean, and it's fine, and it doesn't take away from our practices for Yule. It doesn't, it doesn't make a difference, and everyone has fun. The kids think they're having 3 Christmases. It's well, and of course my parents, have been divorced since I was young, so there's lots of grandparents. They get the benefit of that aspect of divorce, but it's all good, and it's good times, and it's just really, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it at all. So
yeah, and just keep in mind though that we all know we have those in our family. Just avoid them if you can. That we'll try to condemn or control.
Self-care. That's
self-care. And I'm telling you, just have as much fun at the boundaries, but you know what? Have as much fun at the Easter egg hunt as the kids do.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
And hide those eggs.
Oh yeah, and if you get the bigger eggs, the little miniatures fit inside the bigger eggs, so that could be a great adult
there you go.
Easter egg hunt. But there's nothing wrong with it, and if you can't be with your biological family, be with a family that you can be with, and it can be anyone. And I'm telling you, believe it or not, this Zoom stuff is really cool.
It has saved me during 2020. I mean, it saved me. We as a tradition really stepped it up. Everything got shut down. We used the platform before, but it really got ramped up with things as far as the tradition, and us really using it as a platform, and really knowing what we could do as a tradition and communicate. And I have bonded so much with people that I haven't even met in person yet, but I feel like I'm so close to them, and and we've bonded, and we have these communications, because you're not able to embrace them. And yes, I'm a hugger and I miss hugs, but it's the next best thing. And it really is. You still have that quality time with another human being.
And allows you on for 2 people for quite some time, and I Zoom with everybody, and it's great. And I Zoom with
always talking.
Well, we Zoom all over, because our tradition does things all over the world. So we Zoom 2 to 3 nights a week,
if not more. But
at least we Zoom. So
bringing up a good point, because we are going to be wrapping up here, but bringing up that as a point, we do have Reverend Ravenwolf starting his mediumship class on the 19th for Pagan World. You and Mary have done 2 rituals now for the Moon with Virtual Circle. Lord John is going to have a teaching the first degree coming out. And Oberon Zell is going to be doing one. I know Ed, I think, is going to be doing his Techno Mage at some point. I'm not sure of the dates, because some of them are still tentative, but I know
over on Zell the 15th of every month.
Yes.
We will be on, full moon is next week.
Yes.
So we'll be on for the full moon. I think, Reverend Greenfield, I think his is like once a week.
I think so.
Yeah, his is like once a week.
What I am certain of is it starts on the 19th. So 2 days. Well, 2 days from today, but
Yeah, so I mean, and there is so much, let me tell you, our tradition is like taken over Zoom sometimes.
yeah.
If you are where you need to have a ritual for Ostara, or if you just need a full moon ritual, there are quite a number of temples
Right.
through our tradition that are offering online rituals. My online rituals are teaching rituals, which everybody is welcome to come if you just want to learn or just sit in on one that's, someone else is hosting. But there are listings all over. There are many traditions that have their 90% of the rituals are now online.
Yeah.
And we were finding out when we were in Casadega, they're doing tons of stuff on Zoom.
Yeah, every lecture that we sat in on, they had a camera set up and they were streaming to Zoom as we were doing it. So it's just, it's a new way of doing things, with the pandemic and discovering, hey, we have this technology and putting it to good use. And pagan.world is for all traditions, all, you can go there and there's a lot of good information, but yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. You should check it out.
But again, make sure that you enjoy it. That's the biggest thing. Whatever you celebrate with life and enjoy it. And hope that the next couple of days, next couple of meetings, we're going to be talking about different aspects of Easter and Ostara. And then we're going to be including another holiday, which we're going to keep secret, so that you get to hear something different on another holiday that you wouldn't expect from us. But definitely enjoy the holidays. Get that childlike child. You got that inner child? Let her out once in a while. See what she wants to do. And you would be amazed. We got to do that. If you saw our trip to Casadega, I have to mention the fairy garden.
Yes.
That let the inner child out. That was the most awesome thing in the world, going through that fairy garden, just to see the stuff and be that child again and be on that mystery hunt. Look at that, look at that, look at that.
And what I really loved about that, it wasn't commercial. It wasn't like a commercial, like corporate built fairy garden. It's people that are visiting this small community that come and visit this fairy garden, and they leave their own trinkets behind as offerings to this fairy garden. And it's built up over the years and it's so huge. And I mean, I think that's what was so beautiful about it, because like I said, there would be things from like Lays, and there was a Christmas tree and a reindeer, and and there was a fairy ring with the mushrooms, and
the cat house.
The cat house. There were, I mean, so many things. There was an Iron Man. There was so many different things, and it's just people leaving little pieces of themselves, and it was just, I thought that was the neatest part of it.
The neatest part, yeah, because it's not commercial. It was just laid out. You follow this path, and this path is just continued on, and everybody's just leaving things. It was awesome, and I think it was all homemade, and it kind of made a big impression. The fact that nobody was taking things, but people were leaving things.
Yes.
So, and everybody there was really getting a kick out of it. I think the adults were probably more into it than the kids, because if you notice, the adults were the ones, where the little kids were just walking around and looking, because it was so much to take in.
Yeah, it was really neat.
It was fun, but let that inner child out for a little bit, it's probably been a while. So if you're home by yourself, you want to dye Easter eggs.
Yes, absolutely.
I go out and blow bubbles. Go to the dollar store, blow them bubbles.
There you go. Grab that book and those crayons.
Really, I mean, I used to say I had grandchildren, so I could go see the Disney movies every 7 years. So I told my kids, that they have to, space their kids so I can take each one of them to a different Disney movie. Because I enjoy Disney movies.
I do.
It's a lot of fun, but you do need to do that self-care, and that's part of it, acting like a kid once in a while. They actually say that does help with certain types of dementia because you keep those brain neural pathways alive. So that's another thought,
Yeah.
I never understood that. And I was like, why? But when you think about it, you're reusing those neural pathways in different ways. So now you're a child again. You get to laugh again and see the fun in something. So I suggest that. Just again, the ethics. I know I'm a little hard on that, but the holidays are hard enough sometimes just to get through them because they are stressful. If you're like Melinda, you've got the kids, you got to run to this parent and that parent and this parent and that parent. They've got to run to all the school stuff. So sometimes, you have to take a step back. There is no reason to fuss and fight over a holiday. Have the holiday celebrated, however. It doesn't matter. The whole idea of gathering together and being together is to celebrate something.
Right.
So whatever you celebrate it with lots of love and lots of laughter.
Exactly. And we will be talking about, again, gods and goddesses next week and symbolism. And then join in next week to see what our tea of the week is going to be. We're going to keep that a surprise. And that is all. We're a little over on our time because it was so much fun talking about all this stuff, of course. And we will see you next week.
Yeah, tune in, but make sure you try and check out our Casadega trip because that was lots of fun.
Oh, yes. Check that out. That's awesome. If you haven't. Bye.
And be on the road again soon. Till next time.
I made this.